Out of the 58 roller coasters that I've currently been on, 3 of them are inverted coasters by Bolliger and Mabillard. 2 of them are Batman the Ride clones at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey, and Six Flags Fiesta Texas in San Antonio, Texas. The 3rd invert that I've been on is Raptor at Cedar Point. Raptor is not only longer, faster, and taller than the others that I've been on, but it's also an overall better ride, and it's one of my favorite coasters ever. The ride is filled with whippy, intense transitions, and the coaster dominates the front section of Cedar Point's midway. Not only this, but it looks gorgeous with its twisty green track. So does Raptor ride as good as it looks? Let's find out. Before I start the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because that would be awesome, and each new subscriber is greatly appreciated. Also, I'd like to thank you all for 200 subscribers. 200 is a pretty big number, and it doesn't feel like that long ago that I was at 20 or 30. Alright, let's get into it. The first thing that I'm going to be talking about is Raptor's statistics. When the coaster opened in 1994, Raptor was the tallest, longest, and fastest inverted coaster in the world, and while it no longer holds these records, the coaster is still somewhat on the larger scale for an invert. Raptor stands 137 feet tall, has a top speed of 57 miles per hour, features 3,790 feet of track, and travels through 6 inversions, including a vertical loop, a zero-G roll, a cobra roll, and 2 corkscrews. I wouldn't say that Raptor is extremely tall or fast for a B&M invert, but it is larger than most other inverts since the Batman clones stand only around 100 feet tall. I think that Raptor has pretty average stats for what it is, which is why I'll be giving it an 8 out of 10 in this category. Its stats are solid and they work well with Raptor, but it's not like it's 200 feet tall or anything, which is why I'm just going to give it an 8. The next category is smoothness, and when I first rode Raptor, I didn't have very high expectations for it to be smooth, but I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't find this coaster to have any rattle or headbanging, which was pretty surprising since this coaster isn't very new. In fact, it's almost 30 years old. Anyways, I found each element to be perfectly smooth, except for the cobra roll, which had a little bit of jerkiness in the transitions, but if you just sit closer to the front, then it's really not that bad at all. One moment that wasn't rough but did cause me to bang my head on the restraint was the transition into the final brake run. This only happened on my first ride though because I wasn't expecting it. This element is just fine if you properly brace for it, and it's at the very end of the ride, so it doesn't even really matter. I'll give Raptor a 9 out of 10 for its smoothness. Now, let's talk about Raptor's pacing. After the drop, Raptor pretty much hauls through the first half. It flies through the loop, whips through the zero-G roll, and the cobra roll is pretty intense. After that, you hit the mid-course, and if it's on, which it usually is, then Raptor will still whip through its final corkscrews and helix, but if the mid-course is off, which I was very fortunate to experience, then the final corkscrews and helix are insane, and the whip is better than any other invert that I've been on. And the helix, it's a guaranteed gray out. It's crazy how much speed you have when you hit the brake run, even if the mid-course is on, which is why I'm giving Raptor a 10 out of 10 for pacing. There really aren't many coasters that haul more than Raptor does. At Cedar Point, there are definitely some forceless roller coasters. Raptor is certainly not one of them. I swear, every single element on this coaster is packed with positive G's, and while some elements are stronger than others, each one is still intense nevertheless. Right off the bat, you have the vertical loop, which will have you pinned to your seat. The zero-G roll isn't very forceful, but the whip is still pretty good regardless. Then you have the cobra roll, where the pull-up and pull-out will have you glued to your seat, just like the vertical loop. Even the turns into the mid-course provide some decent forces. The most forceful part of Raptor though is by far the final helix. I don't think I have ever experienced a helix more intense than this one. What makes it even better is the fact that the train has no floor, so it feels like the G-force is literally gonna rip off your legs. It's crazy. I grayed out every single time I went through this helix, and on my trimless rides, I came pretty close to blacking out. It was insane. From what I've said in this category, you can probably guess that I'm giving Raptor a 10 out of 10 for forces. The last category in the review is trains and restraints. Raptor's trains are 8 cars long, each car seating 4 people, so each train seats a total of 32 people, which is a very good capacity. As far as restraints, Raptor has the traditional B&M large over-the-shoulder restraints. Personally, I have mixed feelings on these restraints. If the coaster is rough, then the headbanging on the restraints can be pretty brutal. A good example of this is Batman the Dark Knight at Six Flags New England. The corkscrews on that coaster are easily the worst part of that ride due to the headbanging. If you remember back to the smoothness category though, then I said that Raptor is very smooth in most places, so these restraints are fine on Raptor. They're not the kind of restraint that will come down that much, and they allow for a pretty free feeling, which is great in elements like the 0G roll. The trains themselves look fine. They aren't anything too special, so I'm not going to spend much time talking about them. They have pink, black, light green, and yellow, which sounds bad, but it actually looks pretty good. I'll give Raptor a 7 out of 10 for its trains and restraints. If the trains looked really cool, or they had an outstanding restraint, then maybe the score would be higher, but I'm not going to give it anything higher than a 7 because it's really not anything too special. Raptor's final average score out of 10 is an 8.8. Raptor is just a really great roller coaster. Its good pacing, smoothness, intensity, and decent restraints all contribute to it being an amazing ride. I know that of the 3 B&M inverts that I've been on, Raptor is by far my favorite. If you've ridden Raptor, then tell me in the comments your thoughts on it. If you haven't been on Raptor, then tell me what your favorite invert is. If you don't give a shit about roller coasters, then don't comment. Anyways, this is CT Coasters, signing off.